Hello, Billy the Artist here, back with another drawing. Today we are doing Mark Billingham. We're on the third of the DS of SAS Who Dares Wins. We've already done Foxy, Jason Carl Fox, Ollie Ollerton. Today we're doing Mark, then we've got Jay, and then we've got Ant. Now we're doing these, and we're doing these quite quickly, but do check out these guys. Please do like and subscribe for all the new how to draw lessons and the time lapses and everything else. And I am going to be doing lots of different subjects. And remember, not only have we got these guys, and you can check this out in the how to draw portraits playlist, but also how to draw, they're in that playlist as well. But we do also have the previous portraits that we did were Albus Dumbledore and Billie Eilish. Now again, there is a how to draw Harry Potter specifics playlist. I am adding at least one Harry Potter portrait every single week for the next few weeks and months. Just trying to do that, but doing other stuff as well, just to give a broad scope of portraits and drawings and lots of subjects that we can do, but stuff also for beginners. Now again, I do lots and lots of different portraits and drawing subjects, cartoons, to teach you how to draw while we're all staying at home, but also beyond that as well, because I just want to share and encourage. I've been doing these how to draw videos amongst my paintings now. Again, check out the paintings and drawings time lapses. You will see the high-end oil paintings that I've done in the motorcycle industry, because I just love motorcycles and motorcycle racing. Do check them out. But I've always done these videos to encourage and help you guys just to draw. So again, there are lots and lots in the playlist, so do check out the links in the cards and in the description. Lots of videos down there. But again, these are using grids. Now I've done a simpler grid here, and I will put a banner with the dimensions that you need to put on for these grids. Now I use shapes. If you check out the banner now, how to draw anything, part 1, it will teach you how to draw anything from a bird, a bee, a flea, a tree, a horse, a house, or anything else. That's what I say in that first video from over 5 years ago. But there is in the description as well a link to how to draw Olaf using grids. Now this has got a 2 centimetre grid on it, and a link in the cards and the description to laying the grids. There's a 20-odd minute video shows me laying not only this 2 centimetre grid, but also this one. These are just the different grids that I actually use as a basis that will help you to draw, help you to get the foundation drawing, your preparatory drawing underneath for the portrait down, using the shapes, but it just helps with the reference points. And it's a great way of building your confidence. These are all master techniques. It's absolutely great, and I want to encourage you in your drawing as you develop your skills, because when I started way back, I've been drawing now for over 40 years, I just copied cartoons and things, but there was no real tuition, so I had to kind of find stuff out, and I read lots of books, and this is all through high school and even going to art college. It was all about experimentation and be creative, not actually teaching you basic techniques that will help you to draw. So then you can be more creative. You can change perspective and flatten things and stuff, but actually learning basic drawing techniques wasn't taught. So I had to discover it myself, and that's why I love helping and encouraging you guys. So now, here we have this piece of paper that we're going to draw Mark Billingham on. Always a little further, he says in his videos, which is great. Check him out on Instagram and on Twitter, and he posts loads of his exercise stuff, and he says there is no excuse. You should always do some, and do look after yourself physically as well, but there's no excuse to actually do the drawing properly, to learn the techniques. You can just grow and develop and just do a drawing every day. Do something to grow your skills and your abilities in art and with drawing. Now again, I'm going to use the trusty 2B pencil, but again, we have this grid, this centre line. If you check out the banner now, the dimensions are there for all of these markings. The centre line is 105mm. It's a piece of A4 paper, that's what I use. This is Daler Rowney smooth cartridge paper. that I just love using. I've used it for years. It's great. I just love the feel of it, and I love these particular pencils. I've used others. There is a video about the pencils that I've used and what I do use and why I use them. So do check that out in the how to draw playlist that is on there. But this centre line is 105 millimeters, and then I've got a centre line down here. Now it's 297 millimeters down the side. A4 is 210 by 297, and we split the page in quarters, and then we split it again in quarters. Now the actual markings that you will put on with your ruler in millimeters are in this banner, but that's how you set this up. I put these lines on so that you can see them. When you put the lines on, put them on lighter, and then you can rub them out, and they're not as dark. So you can use something like a 2H or a HB and just draw the lines on very lightly, or even with a 2B you can do that. But I do these lines very dark so that you can actually see them for this drawing video. So anyway, now we are going to start our drawing of Mark Billingham. So now we're going to, on the centre line, kind of up near the top, I'm just putting a mark down. This is like kind of becomes a dot to dot. And then down the bottom we want where his chin is, and then here the side of his head we are going to just draw a line all the way down there, and then his ear on this side, just going to draw a rectangle first. So that kind of comes down to about there. So I'm drawing this rectangle shape, and then we can just put a little curve in at the top and slightly indicate where his ear is inside that little rectangle. Again, this is just using basic shapes. So here we've got, I'm going to draw the side of his head on the left, but we've just got a V. So you can see here there's just a V of his hair, just like a big capital V there. And again, the hair there, I've got a square. Now here coming across we've got like almost like the beginning of a capital N there. So if you imagine that, you've got that little triangle off that line there, and then we've got a little rectangle, that's going to be that little flick of hair. And coming from this part here, it kind of comes across from the top of his head, and we're just going to curve that over to come all the way down, and that's the curve of the top of Mark's head. So now I'm just curving over to where the top of his head at the front comes over, and now we've got this kind of little rectangle here of shadow caused by his hair at the front, and the kind of flick of his hair right at the front that just pushes up. Now coming off the side of his head, we've got a little bit of a triangle there of shadow that we'll develop later, and the top of his forehead there from his hair. So now we're going to come down, and we've got these brilliant pockets of shadow caused by this strong sunlight. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to put a triangle in, which is going to be Mark's nose. Well, we're going to build it up out of a couple of different shapes. So you can see here we've got the triangle comes down to the bottom of his nose, that comes across, got a little rectangle for the side of his nose, and you've got this kind of little triangle shape. But then we've got this fantastic pocket of shadow. We've got here, we have a little rectangle that is the top of the shadow of the bridge of his nose, where you've also got the crease where his eyebrows are. So now I am just drawing in a rectangle for the top part of his eye socket, and then we've got this triangle underneath that comes up through the centre line. So there we've got a rectangle and a triangle. That's that big pocket of shadow. So now I'm going to, and you can see where his eye is, and we want a little triangle kind of coming across, line kind of goes up, and we've got this triangle for his eye, tiny little triangle there on that line that we just drew with that rectangle. His eye comes down, and then there's that kind of crease that comes off, and then here we've got this fantastic triangle of shadow right inside. I'm just looking at my reference, and there's a triangle of shadow right inside his eye going up to his nose in the corner, and then you've got his eyebrow that comes off there. So I'm just putting a little rectangle in to indicate where the eyebrow is, and then at the end it just goes into a little point of that triangle, and we've got another rectangle there for the shadow. I'm just putting these shapes in, and they'll just help to actually build up the full portrait in a bit. So now we want a little triangle here. So this is Mark's left eye, and then we've got another triangle where it comes down. It just kind of curves underneath, and then the crease of his eye goes right out underneath. And then we've got just a nice curved big wide U underneath, and that's the bag underneath Mark's eye. I missed it on this side, didn't put it in as we were doing this eye, so put the bag, and you can see like it comes underneath the fold of the skin of the underneath eyelid part. It sounds quite horrible saying that the bag's under someone's eyes, but it's a phrase that people know and understand, and we've all got them, and it's just, yeah, you kind of think, is it right to use that phrase? Anyway, it's the bottom eyelid, and it's the fat that's kind of underneath your skin that causes those shapes. So now we want his eyebrow. There we've got a triangle of shadow there, a rectangle of shadow there, and a triangle there, and that's going to be that shadow going into the nose at the top. So now right down here I'm putting a little bit of a triangle shape there. That's the bottom of his nose, and then here right at the edge we've got the front of a D, and this is the side of Mark's nose. You can just see just a D shape there. Now I'm going quite carefully so that you can just see how building the shapes up gives a foundation, and then we'll put the detail on afterwards. So now we want Mark's lips. So here I want tiny little triangle, and then we've got a rectangle. It's not flat, it goes up, it's just slightly angled with his kind of little smile in the sunshine. So I'm going to come up to, I'm just going to put my pencil there. And then I've got a rectangle, but we can just curve it down at the edge, and that's the edge of his mouth. So here now, I've got a rectangle for the edge of his moustache, triangle going up for his moustache underneath his nose there, and then this comes all the way across. So here now we've got a triangle with a square on the top, and that's his moustache on this side, and then that goes up underneath his nose, and we've got quite a strong shadow. Now here we've got this little shape, little kind of parallelogram, and I'm also going slowly because of these fantastic strong highlights and shadows that are actually put on by the sun, because it's coming down directly from above. And we've got another parallelogram shape here, and then a little bit of a triangle to the side. So now I'm looking, and we're going to, in fact that line that I put down was just way too low. That's kind of more down where his neck is at the bottom. In fact, that might have been where I looked at this, like his neck really, it says that's his neckline down at the bottom. I was looking at that thinking, his chin's a bit long, but it isn't, that's his shirt. That's his shirt line for the bottom of his neck coming right the way down. And so I just want a diagonal line there going up, and Mark's chin is at the bottom. So put a little rectangle in, and then another one for his neck going up around the side. And we know that his chin is kind of down to this part here, this line. And now coming down underneath that V point, you can see that, or just underneath the line, we can see where the side of Mark's face is. And we just need to carefully draw this line up, coming up through this guideline, and then it just kinks out and then comes up where the side of his cheek then just curves that little bit again, and then goes up the side of his head. So here we've got a kind of little rectangle and a little diagonal line for the edge of Mark's eye socket, and we've got that shadow there, and then the highlight there, and a little triangle of shadow there. And then you want his ear, just a little line, very thin slither. You can just see that's his ear just showing around the corner. Now we've got this crease coming down, just running parallel with the side of Mark's cheek. So now I've got where we've got Mark's top lip here, a little kind of a V with a flat part at the bottom, rectangle coming over for part of his bottom lip, and then that curves up, and then here we've got quite a nice D shape, and this is the light caused by the shadow of his face down the side. and that curves around, and we've got a kind of oval shape there for the little bit of whiskers underneath his bottom lip, and then a triangle, little V-shape triangle there where in shadow you've got the whiskers on the side. And you can see we've got quite a good set of reference marks now, and we've nearly got all of Mark's face down. So what I'm going to do, and we've got loads of crease lines. This is where actually having the grid helps you much quicker to get down the lines, and you can just build these up slowly and just keep looking. So coming down underneath his ear, we've got the back of his neck, and that kind of comes down to about there, and you can see that kind of goes across, and it should be level with kind of the top part of his moustache there, and then his neck kicks out. That kicks out and comes across and then comes down. So here I've got a big triangle for his shirt around the back, then his shirt carries on, and that comes down around, and there's his shirt coming underneath the bottom to where his neck is, and then where his neck comes down we can bring his left shoulder over, and then we can just indicate some of the fabric. So here we've got a long rectangle and then just a simple curve for his shoulder, and this is like the stitching on there. Rectangle where you've got the kind of creases and the folds, triangle there, and that shadow coming down, and we can just build up on those when we add the detail later. So now, because his shoulders are turned to the left and his head is turned to the right, we've got these creases in his neckline coming round from his jaw. But we can see here from his ear, I have to say that very carefully, ear from his ear, here from his ear, too many E's and H's. We want to get his jawline and the creases correct. So we've got this fantastic shadow just above this cross point in this bottom quarter. And then that curves up. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm getting these lines, because there's just so many lines, you've just got to make sure you're getting your reference points in the right place. And then that curves up, and actually we've got quite a triangle of shadow there caused by his ear straight down. That helps. And so here we've got a slither, it's like a kind of bottom lip here, and we can see that we've got another really good shadow line coming down, and that comes all the way down to there, and then kind of level with the bottom of his nose we've got just another line that comes down, and then we've got a little triangle at the bottom. And then here, just above, and it kind of just comes to the edge. You can kind of see where it's level in the kind of centre of his edge of his eye socket on the right hand side. So we've got a triangle there of shadow, and then a diamond of shadow. And then we've got the edge of his chin with a tiny little triangle, and that's going to carry the shadow down and around. And then we've got the shape coming under, that's a triangle on his cheek there, and then we can just carry down the crease of his little goatee, his whiskers coming down from his moustache down to his beard and down to his bottom chin line. And then here we've got another crease line going up to his ear and the side of his head. And then we've got a long tall C for his earlobe. Well, inside his earlobe, the kind of flat bit into the entrance to his ear. So we've got that C there, but you can see in the shadow. So if we go up now, we just draw a diagonal line up, going right the way up. We can see here, there is the kind of entrance to his ear canal. There's a diamond. That's a brilliant diamond shape. And so now, I'm just quickly indicating there's a kind of upturned V there, little circle. I'm just bending the C down for his ear there. And so we do have there our cubist, our kind of Cézanne shapes for Mark Billingham's head. Now I'm just going to sharpen my 2B pencil so as I don't smudge the lines that I've actually got down. I'm now going to put this piece of paper down like you've seen me do so many times before, and now we're going to put a much more detailed line in, and we're going to start with Mark's nose. So we can see here right in this corner we've got a curve coming down and out, and then it kind of kicks over, just a slight curve, and then his nose comes out curves to the edge, and then we've got that brilliant D shape curving right on the edge there. The curve of his nose comes down, and so here at the bottom we've got this kind of, the bottom of his nose, we've got a little flat bit, and then it just kind of curves up a little bit and goes up to there. Now here on the right hand side of his nose, it's a C with a kind of squarer top going up. I'm just going to indicate, like here on this side we completely missed the crease in his cheek. We've just got the diagonal line coming down, it's like a leaf, a bit of a, like another mouth really. You've got that bottom lip shape there that curves down, and then the top of the shadow curves across and then comes down. Kind of missed that one, sorry about that. So, but that's the thing with drawing, you're looking all around your reference image and you just add as you grow. There is no formula for which order you do things in, but getting a foundation down, getting all of these shapes in really helps. And that's why I love doing these real-time tuition lessons, because you're actually seeing it. And I'm doing a quick drawing, you know, my full time lapses, if you check out the portraits time lapses, some of those are like 2 days, 3 days, and when you see the hyper realistic artists who take 4 weeks, 6 weeks on one drawing, that's amazing. But now here we've got Mark's nose, and it just kind of slightly curves down the nostril, to this flat bit underneath the bottom. And now we've got much more definition, giving us a good basis for our drawing. So now we've got his eye here. I've got the bottom part of his eyelid up to his tear duct, and then his eyelid goes up, and then his top, from his tear duct up to underneath that fold of his top eyelid. And here, just to the side of this guideline, is where we want his top eyelid, the fold of his eyelid, coming across that little triangle that we drew at the beginning, and it comes over the top of that line that comes up and then curves over in the corner. And then we want his pupil right in the centre and his iris to the side. Now, the bottom part of his eyelid curves round and up. Now I'm just going to fill all of that in. And this is still just using the 2B pencil. And that gives us a little bit of good clarity. We've got the centre line and we've got the shadow. That shadow line is a little bit higher, so that can come down. Now we want the bag under his left eye, that U, and then there's a second line underneath. And then we've got these crease lines coming off. From the top we can push that line up to his eyebrow. So here we've got now his eyebrow, you can see, kind of comes up to there. And because he's got very blonde hair, very light hair, it's the kind of shadows and little flecks of highlights that help to give definition to his eyebrows, because they're just almost obliterated in the shadow caused by the shape of his eye sockets. So that kind of comes up there, and then we want that highlight going up, curving round, and the edge of his head going up. Now I'm drawing these lines very dark so that you can actually see them. Now I'm just going to indicate where his eyebrow is, but all of that's going to be filled in with shadow. So now we're going to come across and do Mark's right eye. Now again, just checking the positioning, and we can see here we've got some tiny little flecks of Mark's eyelashes just caught in the sunlight. And we've got a nice curve of the bottom part of his right eye. And that just curves around and curves back up. And then we've got this diagonal line coming all the way up over the top. I'm just lowering the darker part of this line down a little bit, and the crease of his eyelid comes down, and then that goes off, the crease coming out to this side here. Now the top of his eye coming down to his tear duct, so the tear duct really in the dark comes across the centre line, and then it just curves up and joins underneath. And then we've got the edge of his iris, it's really in the dark on that side, and then his pupil kind of right in the centre. So there already we've got just Mark's eyes in place, giving us some good little reference markers. And now I want to carry that triangle over for that shadow underneath, right in the corner of his eye socket, and then that comes up and over, and this is his eyebrow on this side. So I'm just indicating his eyebrow. So above it now we've got this shadow that's cast by the corner of his eye socket going to the centre part above his nose, between the bridge of his nose and the bottom part of his forehead. So there we want that line coming down, and then that crease going up there. And now going over his eye socket, we've got this crease in his forehead. So you've just got that little curve, then it comes down and you get this rectangle of shadow, and then you've got a crease above that's coming over, and then you've got going through the centre line, you've got that diagonal crease on his forehead, and then here just nice curve that curves up, comes back round, comes down, and then we've got this curve. It's just like nice simple wave lines, and that one curves and goes to the edge of his head. And so same here, it's kind of like a little V, like a bird, you know, like when you draw the birds as a child. So it's like a long winged bird here. So there's the bottom point, and we're going to draw the wing to the centre of the bird, and then its other wing goes off up, and then we've got another one that comes down very slightly. There's the little tick point, and then that curves over and comes right down there. And then finally we've got this one up at the top. So it curves down, but it's more like a U, so that just curves up a little bit more gently. Just going to sharpen my pencil again, just so as I've got a sharper point. So now we're going to draw on these construction lines the edge of Mark's head coming down this side, and just follow the curve down. We've got this curve of his eye socket coming out, that curves up and curves over to that highlight shadow part, and then it just curves back in and then curves out slightly going up to the front of his forehead. So now here on his cheek, this comes down, curves slightly. We've got the crease line coming all the way down, then you've got the edge of his cheek just comes out, curves back, comes down, and where we've got this point here, it just kind of little kink that kinks out there, and then comes back across for his jaw. And that curves down and round underneath. Then you've got the flat of his jaw at the bottom. That curves around past the centre line and then just starts to curve back up. and then the very side of his neck, coming down to his shirt. And his shirt curves up. Now we've got much more definition showing up on Mark's face. Follow the shirt all the way up. Now the back of his neck, so we've got the top of the shirt there, but we've got the top of his shoulder that comes to his neck, that curves over, goes up, and then we've got the line going up to his neck, the back of his neck up to his ear. And so now I'm going to fill in the curve of his ear. So you've got from the top here, I'm just twisting the pencil so it's just keeping the sharp part, and the curve comes up and over, and you can see it's just kind of above this crease line here. So that's where we put that top part of our rectangle, and then the ear goes out a bit further and then curves back, and it's kind of flat coming down the side of the rectangle, and then it curves back in coming towards the centre line on the grid, the horizontal centre line. And you bring that down following your construction line, comes down and then curves at the bottom where we've got that shadow on the creases in Mark's neck. So now we can increase the detail line on the inside of Mark's earlobe, here in his earlobe. So you've got that going up, and here you've got like a T, so that goes up and it gets really dark, and we can bring the shadow line down, and then that curves around. So there it's just like a T, and then it curves. You just got this slow curving C shape, and that comes down, and then we've got the shadow that's cast. So there you can see there you've got like a P, a capital P shape, but it's just like a reverse S really. You've got this shape that comes round, and just keep thinking like shapes as you're drawing. And the shadow of his ear comes down to the top, and we're just trying to get the outline in. And here where we've got this upturned V, you can see there's another kind of little V shape there, and a little crease in his ear there, and a little crease there. And so now where his neck is, we've got these other crease lines that kind of come round. And you do just have to be a little bit careful. Like I say, these are then going to be the full foundation for your full portrait when you're doing your shading. So if you get this way out, you've got a problem. So now I'm drawing that first line up, and you can see here from just underneath this corner point, you've got from there right the way down to here, just making sure that that's right. We've got a crease line that's going to come all the way across. So I'm gently putting the crease line in, and this is because he's turned his neck, turned his head to the right over his right shoulder, looking over his chest towards his right shoulder. And so we just curve that up a little bit slightly, and then that's the one down underneath his chin, and then you've got one that goes just underneath that, and you can kind of follow the line, and it's coming up past. Now I'm resting my left hand on top of my right hand, and you can hear just me moving it up and down, and I'm just using the hand as a kind of guide. It's almost like tracks that a camera uses when they're filming. So rather than just resting my hand and being limited, I'm using my shoulder and my elbow and my hand as the kind of guide to help that line go where I want it to. And then that really helps. And then you can just curve that up. That comes up there. And we've got a second line underneath that chin there. We can curve this one that's much darker as that comes down. And I keep turning my pencil. It is getting blunter. So I'll sharpen that in a moment. And then we've got one more that is following down. That's coming down there. And then we can just actually hire the shirt. So now we're going to, because we've got the back part of Mark's head, I'm not doing a solid line because he's got such nice light hair. So I'm just kind of over the line that we've already done, just putting little fuzzy flecks, as it were, to indicate his hair. So rather than having a solid line like we've done down here, I've just put little flecks in. But again, going in the kind of direction of the hair as it is, it just makes it more natural. You've got this kind of little flick at the top, at the back. And then still twisting the pencil, and we've got a little flick of hair there, little spike, fuzzing that over, and that comes down. We've got a little flick of hair there, and then the front of his hair coming down the side of his head. That curves down, and then you see the direction change just underneath this guideline, and it's starting to go down instead. So that's that line. Then we've got some hair going up there. Again, comes over, just indicating the lines in the direction of Mark's hair, the way it's going. Because as I say to you, it doesn't matter whether it's short hair or long hair, you just draw it in the way that as if you were brushing it. We've got this part going, this little V, like we said when we got that capital N, going into what would be his parting. And you can see that fantastic highlight there. So I'm going to leave that, and then here we've got little shape on his forehead, and unlike Ollie and Jason, it's so bright coming down that here we don't have a shadow cast where his hair joins his forehead, but we do on this side, but it's very, very light. So here we've got this is the shadow, but it's not as dark as it is on the other guys, and that's to do with the direction of the light. So here we've got his hair coming down, and we're just indicating where the patterning is in Mark's hair across his head. So now we've got here very, very light highlights on his hair, coming on the side of his forehead, and then coming down to the side of his ear. And then you can see just like these diagonal lines. And I'm kind of trying to draw the lines to the length. Like these first ones I did, I just put the direction in. But but I'm just trying to, for most of them, draw the little flecks of lines the length of his hair. So here we've got a darker shadow where it comes down to the stronger highlight parts. And then at the top here we've got these flicks coming over. And then we're just indicating where the shadow is. There. Got a crease here. Just slightly. And then we want to just bring down a little bit of shadow line and hairline there. Just sharpening my pencil again. So now we are getting very close to getting this outline down, but I'm just being very, very careful because we've got so many shapes around here that still need attention, because the shapes of these shadows are very critical and they're very, very sharp. So we've got to draw those in, and I've also got to put his mouth in as much detail as I have with everything else. So now we need to get in Mark's lips. And starting with the centre line, it kind of just curves around and comes up there to the corner of his mouth, and that corner piece comes down. Just put some little wiggles in for his bristles, and then we're going to curve that line up to the corner of his mouth on this side. Again, I'm just looking when when I kind of go quiet and the pencil's just hovering, I'm just looking at the reference because I want to get these in the correct place. So that top lip now can curve over and then that comes down to the centre. Then we've got a little dip right in the centre there, and then it curves to the edge, and then we've got his bottom lip comes round, and this is in this very strong shadow that's cast. Again, we've got the same on this side, and we just want that curve of that shadow going up on his nose, towards his nose. And the same now on this side, we've got this curve of the highlight creating the shadow coming off underneath his nose. Now just indicating the top part of his moustache, and then the bristles at the bottom, just above his top lip, the bottom of his moustache, and they come over, and we've got the part where it comes down the side of his mouth, and then right out from this shadow coming down over, and we've got a lovely triangle of shadow in the bristles there. We can just gently bring the line up of his bottom lip. And then the curve of this shadow coming down onto his chin. And then the same for the hairs right at the bottom of his chin, where the shadow curving underneath the bottom and up the side of his jawline. So we can just indicate some of the hairs down there. And we've got this lovely shadow part coming up. And here we've got like a little mole, a little lump on the side of his face. Not a mole, a little lump. Kind of looks like possible scar tissue, or a little lump of skin just sticking up. And then we've got here the shadow line coming down to the bristles, bottom part of his jaw again. Then we've got this lovely leaf-shaped shadow here. We've got the crease line just inside. And you see how it comes down? It's just like a nice, simple leaf shape. Well, like I said before, like a kind of pair of lips. So you've got the bottom lip that comes around and curves. And then that's a very crisp line. And then the top, it's softer. So we won't do that as sharp as we've just done that bottom line. And now we're going to increase the line for this shadow that comes around and just curve it slightly. And the bag underneath his eye, going right into that corner. We've got all that wonderful shadow and the lines coming down. So now we want, from here, we've got this fantastic crisp line coming down off his nose, down over the top part of his cheek underneath his right eye. So it comes down underneath the centre line, you've got a little point, and then it curves over, coming down his face. And then here, where we've got this triangle that we drew up, you've actually got another little triangle point there, and it's kind of softer. So I'm not doing a crisp line like I've done there, I'm just doing it soft. And then underneath, so we've got his bag underneath his right eye, and that comes down and around, goes up to past where his tear duct is, and then we've got some little crease lines coming off, and you've got one here that comes over, comes down, just kinks a little bit, and then it's like a kind of Y, and you can see that this comes over down here, and then coming off from underneath his eye here, we've got another one that comes right the way down, and a slight little crease over the top from there. So now I'm looking We need to increase this one here, and this is why we do just rubbing that out a little bit, because we've got to increase the top. The top of his right nostril, the side of his right nose nostril, is higher than that point. So we've just got to increase that up a little bit. And we can do the same on this side for that one. Bob that highlight in a little bit. And then this comes off, comes down. We can increase the size of that shadow. Again, just putting these shapes in, being very careful. It's these shadows that have made this quite complex. You're just actually getting all your points in the right place, so that when you put the shading in, it's all going to go really well. So here we've got, I'm just indicating a couple of lines for where his jaw line is, not his jaw, his cheek line is, of his cheekbone going up. And now we want the shadow from his eye socket, and that comes around, goes right the way out to the edge, and that little crease line goes up. Now here, so we've got this diagonal point at the end of his eyebrow, and you can see going over we've got a V. We've just got a very simple V. And that's that fantastic crease into that shadow. Now bring that over. There's a crease up there. We just need to bring that down a little bit more. And then the shadow goes in and up to the top eyebrow and a little crease. So there we've got a quite detailed outline down of Mark. So now I'm just looking to make sure that we've got his neck right. So coming across from his lip, just bringing that over a little bit. We can curve that round. And the top of his shoulder is about there, just a little couple of lines, and then that going down. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed getting that outline down. Now we can erase out all of the cross lines, the guidelines that we've put in. Just get my trusty Mars plastic eraser, and I'm just rubbing away from the edge parts first. And then moving in and erasing the big lines inside his face. Now I'm holding the paper down. In fact, I'm going to get that so I don't put lots of grease off my fingers, so I can actually press on and rub on quite hard, and it just stops the paper from buckling. Even though I've put tape on in the corners, it just stops it from buckling. So that's about as far as I can get. You can see that's got quite dirty already, so I'm just cleaning that off, ready for the next time. And then I've got a Mars plastic and a pen, so I can be a little bit more accurate and remove the guidelines inside his drawing of his head. So we've got one right across his nose there, underneath his eye. And down on his chin, across his neck. Just keep cleaning it off. On his lip there, bottom of his chin. I think, oh, there's one on his neck there. Just remove those, and by using this it's a little bit more direct and you don't lose much of the actual underdrawing. So now we're going to just gently, you can brush it with your hand but you can smudge the paper, so I'm just brushing all of those bits of the rubber off. And then rather than brushing them on the floor, they can go straight into the bin, he says, nearly throwing them on the floor. And there we have a full outline of Mark Billingham, and now we can actually start putting the shading in. So now we're going to put in a quick lot of tone. Now we've got a very strong highlight here and just down the bridge of his nose here, so because most of it is covered, and a little bit on his cheek here, because we've got these very small areas of highlight, and even on his hair up here, it'll be easier to pull them out afterwards using the putty rubber. So now I'm using lightly my 2B pencil and I'm just gently covering all of Mark's face. I'm not twisting the pencil around, so it's going to kind of go flatter, but you can get a much more consistent tone. Now I'm still just using the 2B pencil. Now you can, for these lighter tones, use a 2H, and using the grades of pencils is just a great skill that you can attain and develop over time, and so it's something that you can actually do, but you've got to spend hours and hours and hours just experimenting with the different grades of pencil. Now I do use 2H and a 6H. I don't use all the grades, and the reason is you just develop your own personal style and the pencils and the tools that you actually like using. It's like now I'm even just filling in these shapes with this pencil, but I've not twisted it. The underneath is getting flatter and it's softer, and it's giving me the kind of lighter tone that I want, but I know that it's so thin that I could easily, using the putty rubber, pull off the highlights up here, leaving the bare paper underneath. Now this is another thing with this particular cartridge paper that I use, it's not pure white, it's not a bleached white paper, and I quite like that. I like the slight tone of the actual paper. That's just personal preference. Again, you use what you've got access to. Now I'm just filling in each of these areas, and it's almost like just filling in a shape. And we've now just completely covered all of Mark's face. I'm going to do the same just in the hair. Now I'm using the flat of the pencil that I've just created, and it's just giving me this general lighter tone, and I'm just filling it in because I'll be able to detail the hair up, and because this is going to be underneath all of the other detail, I'm not going in the direction of the hair as I would normally, because I'm just filling in an area quickly, not doing detail. So now we've just filled all of that in. I'm just going to get a piece of kitchen roll. I'm still using the one that I've used on the previous two drawings. And now I'm just smoothing all of that pencil down. Not pressing on hard, just lightly smoothing that pencil around, because the 2B darker lines, you will pick up pencil from that as well. You can see how dirty that's already getting. Now I'm just going to come in quickly with my putty rubber, and I'm just dabbing off where the strongest highlights are, because this is a very, very bright lit drawing with the highlights coming down from the top. Again, I'm pinching the putty rubber right to a point. Now I'm doing these lines in exactly the same direction that the hair is going. Through that tone that we've just put in. Now, my general idea when I started doing these drawings with this lesser grid, and I'm going to finish all of the DS's with this smaller grid, but really I think I should have used the 2cm grid that I did the Harry Potter ones in and Billie Eilish, the most recent ones, because it does make it so much simpler. But I just thought I'll have a go using this slightly lesser grid just to see what it's like for you all as you are doing your drawing. So now we've got the brightness coming down his nose, right down that edge, the top of his nose there, and then right where the shadow comes across, top of his cheek, and then underneath these crease lines, top of his ear, side part of his ear there coming off. Now we've got a very bright highlight coming up these creases on the right hand side of his neck, and even here we can see we've got a shadow, strong shadow coming down that we need to increase, and that's where we'll bring the ends of those highlights to. The top of his bottom lip, top of his lip underneath his moustache, that corner part on his nose, and on his cheek on this side, and then underneath that crease going over, just a couple of little dabs on his forehead just to give us that, and then the top of his chin there. Now you can see very, very lightly that we've got some highlights back in that place, and so now what we need to do, again, I'm going to use the 2B pencil. I'm going to try and hold it in the same way that I did before, because I've already got the flat. And I'm now going to put in these darker tones all the way over, just indicating a little bit more dark where the bottom of his eyebrow is. And we want to fill these shapes in relatively quickly. Again, I'm resting my left hand on my right hand very lightly so that I just need to draw the edge of his ear as well. I can freely fill in all of these areas. Again, I'm just putting in a good darker general tone. Now I'm going to fill in the bag under his eye, just in crease. The crease under his eye. And then we've got to fill in the top part of his cheek. Now I'm not even resting my arm on my hand. I'm just using the pivot point of my shoulder to freely fill in this shadow now. And because we spent a longer time, and this is the thing, I actually intended on these drawings, these ones, to be a bit quicker than, like hopefully about an hour. But there's a phrase on, I don't want to shortchange people. It's not that I don't want to shortchange it, I just want to give you the skills. And so I'm not going to cut the corners of this really good drawing video. So there you can see we've filled in that shape and we've left the highlight showing. And we need to increase that up the side of his nose. And then coming right down the side of his face. But I would rather do a good video and spend a little bit longer than I kind of thought I was going to. And that's another reason why I'll probably use the 2cm grid more often than not in the future, because it's just trying to make things better for you guys. Again, I'm filling up underneath his chin, now down on his neck, right underneath his chin, well, the edge of his chin where it kind of curves around. Got a little dimple there, a little bit of shade. And the reason I will use the 2cm grid is it just makes putting that outline down. There was so much detail in this one because of these fantastic strong shadows that we actually spent a lot of time just studying the reference and then putting the outline down. So there we can see we've got this greater shadow now coming all the way down, cast by his nose, across his face and to the side. And we've got this leaf of shadow here. Now we're coming back up. We're going to fill in the shadow in his right eye socket. And because I've used the same flat of the pencil, I'm now filling in a large area and you're not seeing lots of scratchy pencil lines. And with a 2B, this is great because you get to fill in a large area with a lovely tone of pencil. So now we want got this dimple in his forehead going up to that line. Above the crease line we've got some great lovely little bits of shadow, and that's where the side of this 2B pencil is really, really good. So off this triangle of shadow we're going up the side of his head. Then we want a shadow in the corner of his mouth there. Indicate a little bit more in his nostril, not his nostril, his moustache there on the top. Now we've got the shade, and you've got a reflected highlight underneath, so I'm not going right to the edge with all the dark tone. It needs to be a little bit lighter underneath. Curve that up, and then you've got the edge of his nose, and we can pull the highlight up. Shadow on the side of his nose. But now you can see we've got these great shapes actually forming together. A more convincing three-dimensional head. And the tonal values are going to give us more and more three-dimensionality on Mark's face. The shadow caused in his ear, right up to the top, the crease that comes down. Now, again, I'm using the flat, but now just putting little marks in. It's getting brighter and more spaced out the higher I go up because of the highlights in his hair. And this is where, even though I'm filling in shadow now, I'm doing it in the direction of his hair. He's just got lots and lots of kind of little flaky lines. And I'm doing it in the direction so that it just looks like his hair. It doesn't matter whether it's long and flowing hair and swooshing or short and cropped. Your job is to use marks of a pencil to convince others that they are looking at somebody's hairstyle. And so doing your lines in the way that it needs to go, you're actually convincing people that they are looking at a hairstyle. And that's the thing, you're an illusionist really with art and drawing. You're actually creating an illusion because you're using, in this case, graphite to convince people that they're actually seeing something that they know. And in this case, a portrait of Mark Billingham. So now we've got these little fleck bits. I'm just twisting the pencil to get the sharp point of the pencil. That flick at the back. And these are all kind of mid-tones. I'm just putting some darker lines in. Again, I'm doing this quick as a sketch. And the other thing is even on the face, the shadows, I've only used the kitchen roll or my finger. I've not used my smudging tool. And that was another reason for doing the smaller grid, is just a more limited amount of materials. And I actually had somebody ask me, could I do, because of the current situation, just sharpening my pencil, because of the current situation, they're struggling to get materials, could I just do a drawing with a HB? Now we're just adding some more shadows, slightly darker, in and around the eye sockets. All they got is a HB and a 9B pencil left. And so I said to him, I've done a drawing with what I call a zombie pencil, how to draw a zombie from Plants vs Zombies computer game. And that was a pencil with no brand, no grade on it. It was just some yellow pencil. I had no idea what the quality was, what the actual grade was, whether it was HB, 2H, H, no idea. And I did the full drawing with that one pencil. So even with limited equipment, you can produce good art. Now that's looking quite nice. So now we've got the shape of his eye coming out here, and the bag underneath his eye, that's coming down, and the creases go up inside. And so I'm going to increase the shade, crease around the top. Again, I'm using the side of the pencil, and it's quite flat. I mean, I've sharpened the pencil but it flattens very, very quickly because it's a B. Remember, B is black, H is hard. The higher the number, so 6B, 4B, they are, 4B high and is softer than the 2B that I'm using now. And a 6B is softer than a 4B, and so on. Oh, that was it. In the previous video I mentioned, because some manufacturers now have a 9B. This person who asked me about doing a limited pencil drawing had got a 9B. It's like that's the artistic equivalent of an electric guitar amplifier going up to 11. And I couldn't remember the name of the film when I mentioned it in the Ollie Ollerton portrait. It's Spinal Tap. This is Spinal Tap. It's a spoof mockumentary from many, many years ago. And it says, oh, my amplifier goes up to 11. It's just a classic line that's well known. So there you can see now we've got much more reality going on in Mark's eye socket. So now we're going to do the same on this side, and I'm just putting these tones in quickly, coming around the bag underneath his left eye, right underneath his eye, going up to his eyebrow, and then we've got so many, like even here there's a circle and then there's like a kind of highlight inside of reflected tones. And this, because this is an outdoor shot with such strong light, so many kind of reflected lights, it's almost as if there's no one strong, it could be completely black, well, not completely black, but very dark shadow right underneath. And it's just great having these reflected highlights, because this is a really good challenge for you. But at the end of the day, I am using, if you can remember in the start of all of this lockdown, I did how to draw a toilet roll. I am using exactly the same techniques in this portrait that I used in drawing a toilet roll. Go and check out the video, it's in the How to Draw playlist. And, or even just Google How to Draw a Toilet Roll by Billy, and you will find that video. And I am using exactly the same techniques now that I use in drawing. And it was a quilted toilet, it wasn't even, all the toilet roll had gone. Remember that, if you're listening to this in 10 years time and the whole lot is gone, just Google what happened in 2020. Toilet roll disappeared. It was unreal. People panic bought and they were stupid, absolutely stupid. And you couldn't get toilet roll for a couple of weeks. And many other things. It was just unbelievable. And I even went shopping yesterday, and you're still, Ian Hislop on Have I Got News For You, cannot get tinned tomatoes. Like, you are kidding me. What are you lot doing? You know, it's just morons, absolute morons. But I use it as an opportunity to show you, do you know what? I have got this one quilted toilet roll. I'm going to do a drawing of it first. It is a precious item. And I did. So now coming down his cheek, and again, check out that video. It might even be in the description. I think the link is in the description to this video anyway. But do Google it and check it out, because I had a lot of fun doing that. And it's using exactly the same techniques as this. And I think I even used the same grid as well. So I am not likening Mark Billingham to a toilet roll. Not in the slightest. He is an ex-SAS officer who is a very, very, very wonderful, highly decorated soldier and capable man who could break me quite easily, because I am not an ex-SAS soldier or even a serving SAS soldier. But no, it's just wonderful being able to draw and teach you guys the techniques that I use in how to draw Shaun the Sheep, how to draw a toilet roll, how to draw a zombie with a zombie pencil, how to draw Edna Mode are the same as what I'm using now. And it's an absolute privilege to share this with you. And this is a joy doing this portrait right now. So I am just increasing these tones as we go around, looking for slightly darker. Now you can see his face is really coming together, but that light is so powerful and these shadows are so strong. And that's another reason why, just increasing the detail on his lip a little bit, why I wanted to do this and show you. Increasing the shadow there. We've got little pockets of shadow here. And going up the side of his head. And this is just great fun. I mean, you can hear me scratching the pencil over quickly. We've got a kind of little triangle of shadow there, and we can extend it down here to the side of his nose, and then going up that side. Little pockets of shadow and shading. We're going to smudge all this in a moment, smooth it all a little bit, and then build on it again. But I am doing this quite quickly. And so we've got quite a good strong shadow down his neck. We've got this one that goes up there. Then I'm still using the flat side, so as it's soft, I'm not using the sharp point. That crease comes down to his neck, to underneath his chin. The same with this one. And then this one that curves around. So now we're going to use the kitchen roll again. I'm going to smooth a lot of this tone down that we've just put in, just quickly pushing it around a little bit, just to smooth off a little bit. And it just gives us that nice, slightly smoother tone. So, but also we can push the graphite around with the actual cloth, it's not a cloth, kitchen roll. So I'm really rolling that up so as I've got a good firmer edge, so I can just direct it that little bit more. And I will go back to using my smudging sticks on future portraits, but for these ones of the DS on SAS Who Dares Wins, I'm just using the pencils, the paper and a bit of kitchen roll. This is the kind of equipment that most people will have at home if they've got art equipment already. You know, you can use a bit of toilet paper or kitchen roll, so that will help you with your drawing. So you can see there it's really given a lot more softer look. Just dusting off a little bit, and then so now I'm pushing up the side of his nose, down the right hand side of his nose, leaving that kind of highlighted bit, the shadow down his cheek, crease that little bit. And this is the thing, you can literally use this almost like a paintbrush just to push that tone around faster, and you can see it's already giving Mark's face more three-dimensionality, which is what we're after. Now I'm still going for, you know, this is I'm talking while I am actually doing the drawing, or the smudging in this case. So that's kind of slowing me up a little bit, just because I'm trying to narrate as I go to help you guys with your drawing. But this is a quick pencil sketch. But that is fantastic. That you can really see that lovely light in those shadows. And that's really good. So now I'm just increasing on this side a little bit where the creases are. So here up his cheek, and then coming down to where his goatee is. I'm going to increase that on his lip. So I'm just smoothing right over these eyes. That's absolutely fantastic. Now I'm just going to come back in again quickly with the putty rubber. Now on the previous two I didn't do this until the very end, and it just almost kind of came alive. But you can see there, just putting those little highlights in helps on the creases, but because the light is so direct and so strong because of the sun, this outdoor light, it's just really good to indicate that. I mean, there straight away you see the top of his forehead, just that light really giving depth to the shadows that you've just put in. So So here I'm just indicating the highlights in his hair, just some little ones on the top. And once we've gone round and done this quickly, we will then be adding some darks, and it will really help to lift the detail up in the drawing, because all the midtones that you've just put in these shadows are going to really then leap off the page. There on his nose, then we've got on his right cheek, going up the side of his eye, that piece coming over his cheek, down by the side of his nose, just gently there, the top of the side of his left nose there, and then that little dab on the part of his cheek, and then down there. Straight away you can see that's really lifting off the page. Top of his lip, highlights in his moustache, then that bottom lip there, picking out his chin again. I'm really pinching the putty rubber to a fine point just to get some nice flecked highlights on the whiskers. Now on the side of his cheek here, and then the folds on his neck, going up the side. That's looking really good. I'm so pleased with that. Now I'm going to use this 2B pencil, just make it a 2B. It's already sharpened. In fact, I'm just going to erase those little bit of smudges that went over the sides, and we've got a little bit just gently dabbing on the side. And now we've got that little highlight there. Again, just down the edge, I'm just gently dabbing, coming down the side of his jawline. That's really nice. So now we're going to really increase the intensity. Now this is the 2B, and it just means I can actually get a little, because it's a little bit harder than a 4B, and we'll go over with the 4B for the absolute darks. It means I can get a stronger detail line. Around the detail points that I want, and we're starting with Mark's eyes. So we've got coming down to his tear duct. So you've got like a kind of V there, but that just curves up, and then you've got the curve coming around. There's a tiny little highlight right inside, and you've got the dark going to the edge, and then his iris is not quite as dark. But I'm just softening off the edge of the lines, the dark lines that I'm putting in. just so as they aren't too crisp. And then we've got a bag underneath his eye, got a crease coming down there right underneath the eye in the corner. And we've got a little crease line there. Again, I'm just pressing on gently, just increasing the tone slightly. Just building it up little layer by little layer. Now here we've got that darker line coming down, crisping up that shadow. Got a darker shadow on the curve of his nose coming down, and then on the top of his nostril there, it's quite dark on the inside, but then it just softens off. We've got a little crease in his skin going up to where the shadow line comes down. And it's going so well, I don't really want to rush this. So we're just going to keep going, because this is a really, really good drawing and a good lesson. So already you can see we've got this slightly darker area starting to appear. But as we put more and more in, it'll fill up and really fill out Mark's face so that it all stands out. So we've got this dark shadow coming down to the crease underneath, the bag under his eye. And that kind of goes off to the side. That's a bit darker. Then we've got this crease coming up over the top in this triangle of shadow here. Now you can see his eye really starting to get much better definition, because we're just increasing the shadows and building them up slowly. So now we want this crease here. Like Mark says in his videos, always a little further. And this is the thing, it's like with a drawing, you can take it as far as you want. You can always go a little bit further, pushing yourself, developing your skills and your techniques. And this is the thing, I am increasing these shadows slowly and just building them up. So here we've got, coming off the corner of his eye, some crease lines coming off to the side. A bit more shadow in the corner, and then you've got a shadow to the edge where his kind of ear is, right on the edge. You've got a little bit just pushing out, and then you've got this kind of little strip of highlight. So now I'm just indicating some lines for his eyebrow, and right there I'm just dabbing gently for the little highlights in his hair on his eyebrow. Just a little bit of cross-hatching in that highlighted part and a bit darker above. Now we've got a second line underneath, more lines coming off on the side, and this shadow comes across fills in, going up his cheek to underneath his eye. I'm just crisping that line up. And increasing the shadow right in the corner. And then as his cheek comes around, just building that tone up a little bit. To create that little pool of shadow on his cheek there. And that's looking really good. So now I'm just going to increase the shadow on the nose here, which will make that highlight stand out. And then we want to really darken underneath Mark's nose, just like we did with the eye. So I'm increasing the shadow right underneath the line that we drew for the shape of Mark's nose a while ago. And then I'm just softening the edge. Now this is where I'm using the pencil and just pushing the graphite slightly, just softly pushing it and increasing the softness and the kind of furred edge, because I'm not using the smudging stick. Now the smudging stick gives you really good detailed control because you've effectively got a nib like a pencil. Now I'm doing some of the hairs in the top of his moustache right into the shadow, and then I'm now going to use the flat of the pencil and I'm resting my right hand on the paper because I want hair type shadows for his moustache on the top, but I want the nice softer tone. And it kind of comes down to just above his lip. And you can hear me just dabbing the pencil. But I'm using the flat and not the point. And then you can use the point and put some real little dark lines on. And that helps to increase the kind of moustachiness, the literalness of the moustache. So again, we've got now a really nice dark area appearing underneath his nose. We've got this little passage coming up to the crease above his nose, and then the crease right in his cheek that comes down. And I'm just trying to keep it soft as I increase the intensity. But you can see here the shadow, the edge, has got a hard edge on this bottom part, and that comes across here, but it's soft on the top. And we've got the crease and then like a kind of darker reflected shadow where the shadow folds the kind of shape of his cheek as it comes around. So again, I'm just doing it soft as it goes off the edge. And he says if you look on my portrait time lapses of the drawings that take me a few days, you'll see me using the smudging tool to actually create these as well. And the softer the transition, the longer you have to go. And there's one of Clara Oswald, Jenna Coleman, who played Clara Oswald in Doctor Who. And you actually see me using a brush just to keep softly building the transitions of the tones. So now I've got that one, and you can see I've increased the intensity. I want to do the same for the shadow right underneath his nose. Again, you want to leave that reflected highlight underneath. And when I started doing this drawing, I didn't actually think that I would be doing this kind of level of work and detail, but it's just great to do. And it's quite interesting if you've watched any of the SAS Who Dares Wins programs or read any of the biographies, the military biographies. They train for an operation knowing certain things, but then when they actually get into the operation, something could happen that means it goes in a different direction, or they've then got to react differently. And that's the same as art. It's in most things in life, you can plan a lot and be prepared, but the situation that we're all in now, nobody could really be prepared for this to actually happen, and the outcome of what is going on nationally and internationally. But I didn't actually plan on doing a drawing like this. I thought, oh yeah, I've done Foxy, I've done Ollie, I'll now do Mark, and it'll be the same. But it isn't. So I've increased that shadow quite a bit. Now I'm just softening that a little bit, and then just dabbling on. Oh, that's looking really good. Now we're going to do the same on his eye, for his right eye, that we did over here. We've just kind of done this area a little bit. So now I'm darkening down right in his eye, increasing the shadow of his iris. And then the fold of his upper eyelid just comes across, comes down, and then you get the tear duct comes right out. Darkening that down, then you've got the fold above. And then I'm just softening it off again. You've got a crease right above his eyelid there. Just darkening down, a kind of little triangle there. And then right into the corner of his eye. Here we've got a bit like an arrow. Just a point there. And all of that is shaded in. Coming over. And that goes up underneath the eyebrow. We're just starting to get a lot more depth and definition into the tear duct area. So now we've got the crease underneath, we've got that little line coming down there. Now we've got the bag coming underneath his eye, and then you've got a little kind of Y there, and then another one, and then that comes down underneath. I'm just going to try and leave some of the paper a little bit, and then I'll pull that out with a putty rubber for his eyelashes. Again, just like we had here, we've got this sharper line coming down now from here, bending down, curving over his nose, and then it kind of softens off. We've got some, I'm just putting some little squiggles in for the crease lines, and we want a darker tone there. And there his eyes are getting a lot more definition. Oops, just kind of gone over with that squiggle. That's okay, because we've got, you can actually see he's got hair and shadows cast by his hair from right up above. We've got that crease comes down off there, and then the shadow comes across. But because I've got that going right across that highlight, I'm just going to pull that off quickly, and then just indicating some of those highlights inside there again. And then we just need to soften the edge of that. Again, I'm really going to pinch the end together, just soften over some of those shadow areas that I've just put in with the kitchen roll. I'm just going to sharpen the trusty 2B pencil. Now we are going to work on Mark. It's Mark Billy Bingham. Again, with me being Billy, I thought I'll use Mark's first name for when I'm referencing him during my drawing. Otherwise we'll have too many Billies going on, but what a good name. Anyway, here we have the dark line in his lips, and I've just followed the line that we've put in, and it kind of curves and just wobbles, but then again I'm really making it dark on the inside, but then softening off the edge. Now right on this edge we have brilliant shadow in the corner of his beard where it comes off his moustache and comes down the side of his kind of goatee beard bit. We've got good shadow underneath, and it becomes highlighted on top. On his lip here we've got that darker shadow coming around to that highlight, and then you've got the darker kind of mid-tone in between. We've got the shadow that comes down from the top, and then that crosses over onto his lip, and then you get the top of his lip, it's got that slight darker tone. Again, I'm just softly pushing the pencil and then filling in the top part of his lips, and you've got a reflected highlight just above the centre line of his lips. And then here we've got a diagonal coming out, again into the hairs of his goatee that come down on the side. And then you got the top of his lip. I'm just darkening that down a little bit. Again, it's just cross hatching, going over, adding more tone. Again, this is another repeat saying that I keep on using in the lessons. It's easier to add tone than it is to take it away. And the darker you push on, the less likely you are going to be able to take that off the paper. So now we've got his bottom lip, you've got this kind of shadow caused by his top lip, and this comes across, just kinks up there, and then creases down and comes right underneath. We've got the corner of his lip going up there, his bottom lip. So now, filling in that tone. And then right on the edge, we've got his lip coming down, just little lines in his lip, the crease lines that we have in our lips, in this much highlighted part. And then we've got a strong shadow line as it comes across. And the shadow underneath his chin. And then just like we did on the top lip, just increasing the shadow right on the edge of his lip. And now the shadow coming off from the centre line. And I'm kind of going in the direction of the lines on your lip, just like we did with the hair, but with the softer edge, not a sharp point. Doing the same on the upper lip. Then we want the shadow coming down underneath his chin, the hairs. Again, I'm using the flat of the pencil that's being created. I'm not turning the pencil around. And you're getting these soft shadows and just intensifying and increasing the dark. And the flat just makes it easier to fill in a larger area. And so now we've got shadow tone coming down from the side of his mouth, right next to where you've got the hairs of his goatee. Again, the same up here under his eye. Now we want this crease going all the way up. And then we've got a dark shadow right on the edge of his cheek, just coming down to the bottom. So now I'm just indicating the hairs on his goatee on the side and going over that line, just because you've got that kind of wispy edge of the hairs coming off the bottom of his chin. Again, I'm just twisting the pencil, different techniques just to create those hairs. The same as some of the hairs under this chin here. And that's already giving us a much lovelier three-dimensionality to our drawing. So now we've got to do the same thing with the shadow there, just pulling that down a little bit. Indicate the whiskers on the top part of his moustache. That's really looking good. Again, the same thing here. Increasing the shadow, this crisp line that comes down in this kind of leaf shape. Again, this is just caused by his cheek. The fold in his cheek coming from his nose. Just that little bulge out is casting this shadow. I'm just filling that in quickly. Soften it with my finger, just because the finger's a quick thing to stick on. But you do get dirty very, very quickly. Again, that's why I use the smudging tool, because it means I don't get dirty and I can carry on pushing the pencil around quickly. Oh, that's looking pretty good. So now I'm just going to sharpen the pencil again. Love that electric sharpener. So I'm just indicating the hairs on his moustache and then coming down to his goatee down on the side. Remember, everything that we've done so far is only with a 2B pencil. Now we're doing hairs across the bottom of his chin, and it's most dark right on the bottom line of his chin, and I'm just doing thicker little lines and darker little lines. Right across the bottom. And then thinner ones as they come up, and it's just graduating the tone created by not only the curve of the bottom of his jawline, but also by the hairs on his chin of his beard. So we've got these lines coming off. Not pressing on so dark, just creating some lines in between, and that gives you that kind of little wispy texture that you need to create the hair of his beard. Now I'm just using pencil. You can go on back on with a white crayon or even white paint. I mentioned in a previous one how on the Avicii portrait I went back over his hair and used white paint just for some of the highlights, because it was so dark and it probably got streaks put in, so it was just easier to go back in with a little bit of white paint afterwards. But you can also get white pastel crayon pencil crayons. You can get white crayons that will draw on top. So that's looking pretty good. So now I'm just twisting and using the edge of the pencil lightly to fill in lighter tones, just squiggling around indicating the hairs of his beard. This allows you to build up the effect of all the hairs and bristles. Now there's lots of highlights on these ones, but we will pull those out as best we can with the putty rubber, again not using a pencil crayon, but I'm using the side of the pencil, I'm increasing the tone right at the bottom and coming round a bit. And that gives us the depth of shadow that we actually need on that bottom part of his jaw. And because of the reflected lights in the shadow areas, we might actually get away with only using a 2B pencil on this drawing. So now we've got this fantastic shadow caused by this little lump on his cheek. There's that little triangle, and it goes up over the top, and then that goes up there. We've got a second little one there, and that's that tiny little shape. The shadow is caused by that tiny little shape, that highlight on his cheek. Now we've got these lovely, really dark lines down the side of his cheek. Again, they're a bit more intense than these up here. But just be careful of adding too much dark. Always keep checking your reference and watching what you're doing with your drawing. So that now comes across, and then we've got this dark line right underneath, and that crease comes out and curves around. There's a second one just underneath, and then we've got this one here that comes up, and then those two that come down. And so now we can see from this line we've got a darker shadow coming all the way down, and here it's much thicker. So again, I'm using the flatter edge to soften that off as it curves around. And we've got that wonderful shadow down off the back of his ear. Again, I'm just softening those as they come around. And now I'm going to use the flat. We really need to intensify the shadow down underneath Mark's neck. Billingham. I'll just stick with Mark. So there we have those deeper shadows right underneath his neck. going up to the light on the back of his neck, and again we'll pull up the highlights better in a bit. So now we're doing the same in the ear. We've got the dark of that T, then right in this corner, I'm not pressing on as hard, I'm just trying to keep the edge soft. We've got this little diamond. It's darker in the upper part of the diamond, and then you've got a kind of reflected highlight, and then all the way in the curve going up, and then we've got the cast line of that shadow coming down. Just extend that a little bit on the back of the ear, and then inside the ear lobe going to his ear canal, and we can just gently increase the tone at the top where it's darker, coming down to the ear canal, and there you've got that really nice shadow inside his ear, a little bit cast by the hair there. And at the bottom of his ear, got that shadow cast around. And these creases coming up his neck as well. So that's looking pretty good. Sharpen the pencil again. So now I'm going to use the sharpened pencil, but the edge of it, because I can then just tilt it slightly and get sharp points for these darks here in the centre of his hair. Again, I'm just getting the squiggles going in the same direction of his hair. Straight away you can see we've got that darker mass in the centre where kind of from this little point it goes up. Then we've got the highlight at the front and down the sides. We've got a little bit there at the back. Again, just following the shape of his hair. Just twisting the pencil, keeping the point doing its work. We've got like a dark mass coming down to the sides. And I hope you've actually seen that. Like I say, I've done this with nothing but a 2B pencil, just one pencil the whole way. My trusty 2B pencil. When I used to go and draw live, that's all I used. I used to take just a 2B pencil because it would give me the versatility to get as much information down from a sharp dark line right the way to softer tones. So now I was originally going to do more work with a 4B on this, but I'm just going to try and finish the whole drawing just with the 2B pencil, just so that you can see that it is possible. Because unlike Foxy and Ollie, we don't have massive dark areas. So you can see here, I'm just, again, following the shape of that hair that's going up. Now I need a sharp point again. So because of that, I don't need the 4B to fill in a large area of dark very quickly. And it's just great This is when people say, you know, when do you know that a piece of art is finished? It's a question that is often asked. And even like with my oil paintings, and I know in my mind what I am aiming for to have completed. But there just comes a point where you have to go, yep, that's it, that's done. And you just work across and work on the areas until you get the actual work done. So I was aiming to get this done in an hour and a half, hour 40 like I did the others, but the drawing took over and it just became a beautiful thing to work on. I thought, I'm not going to rush this. You're actually going to get a really good drawing and a good lesson. And it just developed and grew. And I hope you're enjoying it, because I'm having a blast. This is fantastic. So here we've got his hair coming off to the side. And then we've got these shadows caused by his hair coming down. Coming over the side of his head. Hair off at the side. Again, just constantly going in the same direction as the hair itself. And I'm just twisting the pencil, turning the pencil round. So I've got the sharp point. So now we've got the hair there, the shadow coming down, and we need to pull in the highlights using the putty rubber. Again, we've got this end, so the hair is bringing the shadow to this like end point here. Just bringing some of the hairs down. Again, same here at the bottom of this hair. Just a nice fuzzy kind of shadow shape. So now, coming right the way off to the side of his head, we've got a kind of mid-tone that's creating the lines and shape of his hair. And I'm just twisting the pencil slightly, and that's giving me a slight sharper point that's giving me a solid line. But because I'm just dabbing on, it's creating the illusion of the hair, but leaving those highlights in for me. And as we come further down, there are less highlights. So it can be a little bit darker and a little bit heavier. And there's less highlights showing, so we can actually fill in more of the area. And the hair just keeps on going in the same direction. But I'm just filling in more and more of the space. And we're coming down now. I'm using the sharp point of the pencil. Some slight darker points in this bottom part, and that leaves this highlighted area more prominent. Shadow again across the top of his head. Now, because we've got the darkening of his hair, it's really making his face all come together. We've got some dark up at the back, just dabbing that point on. Now, quickly, with a fine point, just pulling out those highlights again. Just like we did with the pencil, just dabbing this in with the putty rubber. And you just indicate some little highlights, and we've got lots to do across the top. There you can see how that's all coming together. So now, carrying on with the highlights in his hair, over to this side. Again, I'm just being impressionistic, putting an indication down, and that it's just a quicker way of doing this. I mean, I know this is being longer than I intended, with Foxy and Ollie taking about 1 hour and 40 minutes, whereas this one has taken 3 hours, I think, about 3 hours. I just really got into doing this drawing, and just didn't want to rush it because of these shadows. And as I say, my joy is actually helping you to grow with your skills and abilities in drawing, and as artists, to show what you can do with a simple, humble pencil. So there we've just increased some definition in Mark's hair up on the top. Now, where his hair comes around the front, again, just a nice crisp line, and then you've got a couple of crisp lines going up into that shadow, and it just really lifts it. And then underneath, inside, reflected highlights, just pulling some of the pencil off gently, just dabbing with the putty rubber. Now that's looking absolutely fantastic. So now, just sharpening my 2B pencil again. And we're now just adding and building some details up quickly. So very lightly on the side of his forehead where the hair comes in, just using the tip of the pencil very gently, and then pressing on darker for these darker tones. So now this line, I'm really folding the kitchen roll up, and then I can just really fuzz up next to the hairline where that is. That's really, really good. I am so enjoying it. I hope you're having fun with this, because I'm really enjoying it. So we've done the hair on the top of his head and pulled all those highlights up. And now we want to do the same down on this bottom part. Again, I'm just increasing some of the darks, just twisting the pencil. And then coming back in, pinching the putty rubber and dabbing on for the highlights. and it just pulls off enough pencil to give you that kind of indication of the highlighted hairs on his beard. Little dabs there. Then we've got this top lip, and I'm just really folding this putty rubber over. I will have to start with a new one again soon, because these are kind of a cream colour, a bit like the paper, and they go eventually kind of black because of all the graphite that they pick up. So now little dabs on the side over here. And then coming down off his chin. Now this lip, got a very strong highlight there. A couple of lines in there. And then I'm gently dabbing underneath the fold just for that reflected highlight. The same thing underneath his nose. Now up on the left side of his forehead, we've got strong highlight there, and that comes around the edge. I'm just dappling, just pulling some of the pencil off, and then these creases down on the side of his face. And then we've got just very slightly, in fact I need a clean piece of putty rubber for this, so I've turned it upside down using the opposite end, really pinched it to a point, and I'm just slightly dabbing because his eyelashes on his bottom eyelid have got slight highlights on, which is fantastic. Now I'm just turning it around and using the other end where I was doing most of the dabbing, and I'm just going to pull up some of the reflected highlights inside his eye socket. And then it's that fantastic eyebrow there, highlight, just dabbing some eyebrow highlights on there, and we need to do the same on this side. And then coming down into the centre of his nose, and we got this fantastic sharp highlight there, right on the top of his nose. Coming down onto his left cheek. Again, just on this side, reflected highlights inside his eye socket and his eyelid. And that's looking quite good. I'm now just softening that off with my finger. That's a bit bright, and even now with the kitchen roll, just softening those down. That's better. Again, right down the bottom here, getting the kitchen roll, just pushing that shade around underneath his neck. Then we've got a little bit of reflected highlight down the side of his neck, and then in between these creases. So now we can really increase the dark in that crease in his neckline. But I want it soft around the edge, so I'm just softening that off. And the same with that one, how it comes up. Now we've got much stronger highlights coming on these creases on Mark's neck. So we've got a straight line there. Put the shadow back in across, and then pull up the highlights on his neck going up the side. And again, I'm just dabbling on the side of his cheek, going up, and then coming off on the side of his cheek on the top. And we're getting real good three-dimensionality now. On his ear, pulling up the highlights on the top of his earlobe, inside that fold there. And this is great. The shadows cast by this outside light are fantastic. And your putty rubber is as valuable a drawing tool as your pencil. So that's looking pretty good all round. So now we're coming back in and increasing the detail. These are the final details now. We want this shadow in between. I've got to be careful now, so I'm bringing the paper because I've got to be very, very careful. We've got a little area of shadow there. We've got this crease coming across. We've got the highlight, so we're going above the highlight, bringing the crease line down, and then softening it off just above. And then we've got a much thicker band there. And this crease here, again, we've got this nice dark line inside that slight tone. A little bit of cross hatching. And then we've got a darker one here. And then that crease goes right the way around the corner. A little bit of cross hatching at the side. Going up to the top of his head, shadow coming off his hair. And again, this crease here. That comes over, and then we can just slightly increase. Just going to sharpen my pencil because I want a finer point. Ooh, just nearly threw my pencil everywhere. And the softer finer point means I can get better detail and definition, just lighter cross hatching rather than wide and fuzzy. So here on this triangle of shade that comes off, we need to increase that slightly. Again, the same on this patch down by his eyebrow. We want that solid crisp line there. We can increase the tone down in the centre, and I'm really pressing on with the point to increase the darkness and the definition of the black around his eye. And there you can see that's really given that fantastic definition. Again, I'm softening the edge just to make it slightly blurred. And then crease lines coming down in the bag underneath his left eye. Just making that tone work, and that eye's looking really, really good. So now we do the same for his right eye. Again, all the tone that we've moved around, we've lost this crease here. So we can just increase that, push the crease where his tear duct is, soften it underneath, and then the dark coming down to that crease, and then that line that comes off. And then we've got these lines that come off to the side. Again, now pushing the dark into the corner. And across the bridge of his nose, got just a couple of little lines. And then the shadow here just increases down the side of his nose. Fold like the edge of his right nostril. And that's looking really, really good. Such fantastic outdoor light this is. This has been a joy to do. This has been an absolute joy to do and narrate and explain to you what I've been doing as I've been going along. This is fantastic. I hope you are really enjoying this, and I hope as you go along and you develop your skills for your portraits that you just add the things that we've done here and the observation of doing this kind of outdoor light to your drawing arsenal. So gently increasing the tone over the top of his crease, the crease lines on his forehead. Now this one comes up and over. Again, I'm using the side of the pencil softly just to fill in. We've got a darker line here. I'm just using the side of the pencil to fill in these shapes. Make the tone darker. but just slightly. So now we've got a crease line here. We've got this one that we can increase the definition of the line. The same coming down his cheek. And so now we need to just build this up slightly. Coming up the side of his head, side of his cheek. And I'm just squinting my eyes to see where the tone is in between these creases. And so here we've got a nice little patch of tone coming across. And the same coming down from here. So this comes down round his cheek slightly. Coming down the side of his cheek. And then we've got slightly darker tones. All the way across. And you can just keep building this and building this for hours and hours and hours. And the slower you go, and if you use more grades of pencil, you can make a hyper-realistic drawing. You can go as realistic as you want, but it just takes hours. Again, we've got some nice little cross-hatching, just to indicate the texture in his skin. Darkening that lip down. And again, this crease coming up the side of his cheek. I can just increase that tone going up. Going up to the ear. Now, darkening down underneath his neck. Just going to sharpen the pencil again. Just back up on his forehead. And underneath his eye. You just got to keep doing this until you are overall happy with the art and the shading and the tone. And then eventually you just call it a day, but you're just building up, looking around the drawing. Just adding that little bit more. Until you're just fully happy with the textures that you've created. So here there's like a little dimple there, and we've got that crease that comes over there, and the shadow. So here we've got quite a crisp shadow line coming across to his eye. We can just increase that. Then we can indicate some of the hair shadows. They're coming out from his eyebrow and the top of his head, wherever they're coming down from. And that's looking rather fantastic. So now I'm coming back in with my putty rubber. I'm going to crisp up a number of these highlights. We've got the one on this cheek here, there, causing the shadow, the sharp shadow underneath his eye. Got a couple here. Oh, that's lovely. The crease is going up to his hair. Creases on his forehead. Again, we've got a lot more tone, well, not a lot, but some here. Just these little shapes. We need to just pick out those little lumps on the side of his face, and then just dappling some highlights coming down off his cheek into this crease on the side, because he's turning his head towards us. Just dappling some highlights in there, in the ear, same. Got the crease highlights here. Again, the same coming down, just some little dapple highlights. These are the last bits. And it's so satisfying when you get to this kind of stage on a drawing where you've had so much fun. And it's just so lovely to actually pull all of these details up and together. Just increasing the reflected highlight underneath his nose. On the edge there. And then down in this shadow bit, we've just got some nice little dapple, and this is the great thing with the putty rubber, you can do these kind of tones and textures, and that's absolutely lovely to do. And so there we've got so much of Mark done. It's just absolutely lovely. Now I'm going to crisp up the collar line, but I'm actually not going to fill it in. Because I think that's really, really nice. I'm not going to fill any of that in, just so that the head stands off. Now, purely because of his name, I'm going to write the whole lot on. So here we have Mark Billingham, and underneath MBE by Billy. I hope you've enjoyed that. That has literally been a joy to do and to share with you all. I know it's been a long video, but the drawing took over. And this is the thing with art, it's passion. It is just a beautiful thing to do. And I hope you've enjoyed it. I have thoroughly enjoyed doing this lesson. Please do like and subscribe. Click the bell for notified for the new how to draw videos. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks very much. Ta-da.